I wanted to ask you about some specific details on moving hose line. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of good and maybe not so great methods of instruction going on out there. What you teach is the same thing you taught, well, when I was in your class in '94. So, with that kind of consistency, there's a lot of good reason for it. Obviously, Clean Fire has been very successful in moving line inside of buildings. Um, what did some of the, what are the, what's the top priorities of the guys riding in the back of the engine when it comes to getting the line from the rig to the door? Priority one is what?
Priority one is making sure the nozzle and the working length get to the door, or the drop point as we call it. The drop point is that location as close to the fire as we can get and put the line in service without getting burned.
So whether it's the front door, Charlie's side,
Whatever.
whether it's the fifth floor, floor below
Right.
the apartment fire, the drop point.
The drop point, it gets that term from the nozzle man and his 50 feet of hose. He's got 50 feet of hose either on his forearm or on his shoulder, and he takes that to the drop point where that 50 foot is flaked out and the call is made for water. Okay? A lot of places, a lot of departments like to have a guy take 100 feet of hose with him. Okay? Again, I say take a look at the type of building that you're working in. How big of an area are you working in? How much, and especially with an 1.75 inch hose, why do you need 100 feet of hose from this door?
I mean, if your houses are 20 by 40,
Exactly.
you're going to spend more time getting rid of that extra 50.
That's what happens. Okay, and it's a chance for more kinking and so forth.
Yeah.
So anyways, going back to how we've done it in the city, is that the nozzle man's got the nozzle and 50 feet of hose, he takes it to the drop point, flakes it out, makes a call for water. Okay, it doesn't have to be the boss, it can be the nozzle man, because as soon as he gets there and makes the drop, and he says, charge the line. Everybody's supposed to have their walkie-talkies on. They're supposed to be listening on the fire ground what's going on, right? What's happening. And when they hear that call, charge the line, that tells everybody that nozzle's in position. And also it puts a sense of urgency. And I mean, let's say you're in the second engine or you're the first truck arriving on the scene. You hear those guys, on that first engine, their lines laid out and they're calling for water right now. Okay, it's like, oh man, they're already in there.
Time to get to work.
Exactly, they're starting the attack right now, and so forth. So if you're on the second or third engine, but let's say the second engine, you know what your duties are in the second engine. Guarantee that water supply, because that line is getting water to it. It's either from the water tank or that driver's got them on a hydrant, one or the other. But that second engine's responsibility is to make sure we don't run out of water. Make sure the first line's okay. And if there's a need for a second line, second engine's responsibility. So just these simple things about the hose layout. Keep it simple, all right? When you're stretching hose, keep it simple, all right? That's why 50 feet makes a lot of sense in that the nozzle man's got that 50 feet in the nozzle, he's taking off. That hose should be coming out of the hose bed, whether it's a cross lay or whether you're operating on the back of the engine, in a straight line. A straight line. Second man, second coupling. Because if he grabs that second coupling and he starts going to the fire with that, he's got 150 feet with him. He's got the 100 feet in front of him, and he's got the 50 feet of that coupling trailing behind him. So if you're operating from a pre-connected bed, your pump operator, if you're running with 3 guys, all he's got to do is clear that bed out and keep it going in a straight line behind that second guy. That's clear. They're waiting for the call for water. Water's coming. If it's a static bed, second man, second coupling. Pump operator, he's got that pump engaged. He's got the tank dropped into the pump, so we got water in the pump right now. He's watching those guys go into that building or wherever they're going, and he's waiting for that call on the radio also. Once they say charge a line, and he sees where that coupling is. If he sees the coupling's right here, then he gives them an extra length of hose. I mean, when that second or that last coupling is hanging out of the hose bed, he's not going to pull the hose back. He pulls an extra length out. Because if those guys do get in there And let's say they do have to move that line around, and they do need some more hose, well, then he's already put it in there for them. See, this is a judgment call. A lot of times experience helps make that call.
There's that word again.
Yeah.
All right, before you go on that tangent again, second man in the second coupling.
Yeah.
He's bringing the line up. Does he bring that coupling all the way to where the drop point is, or is he just making sure the line's staying light until the nozzle man gets to the drop point? Is this the same stretch for a single-family ranch home versus a 3-story McMansion versus a commercial?
All we're doing is putting a line in service.
Hang on, the missus needs you. The best interruptions are from a redhead. That's been my experience.
Well, it's only you and her, it's even better, if that's what you mean.
We were at the second man on the second coupling and stretching, whether it's a small home, a big home, or a commercial occupancy.
Well, you're talking about a couple of different things there. It's a couple of different buildings that offer you different things. You're talking about a 1 or 2 family home. You're talking about a 3-story apartment and things like that. They're all going to be different. If it's a 3-story apartment, you got a fire on the 3rd floor. You got to figure out what's quicker, taking that line around the stairs, or dropping a rope out the side of the window on the 2nd floor, or even putting a pipe pole down the side of the building, grabbing the bail of the nozzle, pulling it up, building up your stock of hose on the 2nd floor. Fire's above you on the 3rd floor. Get a charge on the 2nd floor. Now we go up.
Mm-hmm.
That's one option. The other was that the nozzle man, if you don't do any of those, like the rope or the pipe pole, then he's got to take that line in, down wherever the stairways are. Sometimes that stairways to the 2nd floor, like an older apartment building, maybe 50 feet down the hallway.
Yeah.
And that's going to create a longer stretch possibly. So you can see where if I hang a pipe pole or throw a rope out the window of the 2nd floor, build up my stock of hose on the 2nd floor, I'm saving the length of my stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So see, these are the things you got to look at in your town. And when you're talking about a commercial building, you got to find out where the fire is first. You got to find out if there's any barriers that you can put between you and the fire to where the drop point is. Because if you have a fire in the basement of a commercial building, or maybe a sub-basement, I don't know how many guys are familiar with sub-basements, but you know, in the cities, like in your bigger cities, those buildings have several different layers of basements or sub-cellars, and that's a real problem. So you just can't charge the line outside, go find a doorway and think you're going to go down 2 or 3 levels down. And that's why locating the fire first before you start stretching a line and putting water in is so important. So you'll never make it in that case.
So that second guy in the second coupling, he's keeping the line light for the nozzle man to get to the drop point, whether that drop point may be in the building, around the back of the building, wherever that may be.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's not always in a defined space or place. It's not. You know, the drop point for so many fires is right outside the front door. And I'll give you a long, narrow building, 25 feet wide, 150 feet deep. Fire's back here. What are you going to do? You're going to drop it here? Or are you going to drop it over here where there's a door closer to the fire? What's going to give you the quicker access to the fire? You know?
Yeah.
And everybody says, you know, oh, we have the ability to run across victims. No, you have the ability to create more victims in that case, because if you've got smoke coming out here and the fire is 100 feet away from you, and now the heat's building up and you can't see your hand in front of your face, it's going to take you a long time to work your way through there. If you can work your way through there, if there's no walls in there, or division walls or locked doors or something like that you might have to negotiate.
again, I probably spoken from a position of less experience where you haven't had to try and move hose
Right.
in blinding condition.
Exactly. So keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the fire. Guess what? Here's a door back here. That's what we'll find. That's where we'll take the hose. The drop point's right there. So it's going to vary. You know, it's not, like I say, a defined space on every fire. Can't be. Remember, fires are circumstantial.
Yeah.
So,
And geographical.
yes.
Yeah. So, getting into the static load and working off the back of the engine, which is what you're very familiar with, you can still treat a pre-connected line like a static loaded line. There's nothing stopping you from breaking a coupling and attaching. Say somebody has like LA, they've got so many hundreds of feet over the top of their pump panels as a cross lay, but it's dead loaded, correct? I mean, it's not pre-piped or anything. So the efficiency of that, where you get a nozzle man to the drop point, the next in person is taking the next coupling up to keep it light. They get to where they need water, they call for water, the pump operator breaks and connects.
Yeah.
Where does it break down? How does that system not work? I don't see it.
Once again, we've said it before. The simplicity scares people. The simplicity scares people. You see some departments, they in fact, I run across the department recently. I can't think of the two. The one was the Minuteman load, I think. And because they could not get a consensus on this fire department, half the load was a certain type of load. The other one was on a Minuteman load. I'm
Wow.
thinking, what are you trying to say here?
Wow.
What is your message to your guys? That your department can't make a decision and stick with it? That your department doesn't have the discipline to say, look, here's what we're going to go with, and here's how we're going to make it work?
Yeah.
No, when you see things like that, it's craziness. And all you're doing is adding more complexity and the chance for error in your system right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was going to be crazy. I was like shaking my head, but.
Right.
No, again, when you think about it, if you load your hose flat, it's so simple. We're going to say we're 3 or 4 widths wide, okay, like this. 3 or 4, doesn't matter. Build that layer first, come up, come across. Build that layer up, come across. Build that layer up, come across. Here's the thing about a load like that, and this has been proven time and time again by fire departments that have a good experience laying hose on the street on a regular basis. If you have a second company or subsequent company coming in and they're saying, get a line, okay, you guys are going this location. They come and they put their arm through the folds. If you keep your folds horizontal for this course, and that nozzle man of that next line puts his arm through those folds, and he steps off, he's got his working length with him. So all you gotta do is grab a nozzle out of the compartment, or some departments, the guys are taught, if your engine's assigned another line, a second, third, or other line, we'll take our nozzle with us because we know it works. It's our nozzle and we know what it will do.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So they find a coupling, put it on there, the nozzle man, like I say, slides his arm through there, steps off the tailboard, off he goes. Here comes another straight line of hose. So, and again, it's something that you need to be taught, you need to be trained on it, you need to drill it, and of course when you see it operating, again, if a boss sees that, and he sees the way the plan's falling into place on a fire, he needs to tell his guys, that was a great job on that second stretch. Good job. Everything just fell right into place. You guys looked like you were the initial line. It was all laid out, but here we are coming in, slid your arm through, stepped off. There you go. Good job.
Simple enough.
Praise in public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What about moving that line inside the building where visibility is really limited? Where does that second man peel off and just feed hose? Is that any obstacle? Is it? I mean, I know this is a very situationally dependent question, but
Right.
in general,
What are the conditions? What are the conditions? How bad are they? Is it heat right down to the floor? Is it preventing you from moving any further? If that's the case, number one, in any event, the boss should be right behind the nozzle man, especially if he's got a young nozzle man. Okay. When you have severe heat and smoke conditions that are down to the floor, you can't move, and water's not being played onto the fire or the area. Okay, That boss should be telling that nozzle man, open it up, open it up, open it up, okay? Because right now, at this point, that situation, you're pinned down, you don't see any fire, you're relying on your turnout gear to save your life at that point. You're not throwing
That's
water.
never a good idea.
No, it's not. In other words, you're down to the last barrier, okay? Why would you let a young nozzle man, we're not proving virility or manhood here. We're here to put the fire out without getting ourselves incinerated in the process. And so that's where an officer is supposed to be behind that nozzle man to make sure that never happens. But unfortunately, we have officers who have been taught a lot of different things other than firefighting principles and practices. They're taught to look for this, look for that, go around, go for a search and so forth. If you go into a situation like that, I'll give you another example right here, because we've had it happen. You go in, you knock the fire down, it's hot, it's smoky, it's steamy, and you're waiting for something to happen, okay? You hear things, like windows breaking, you hear maybe a saw running, or you hear a bunch of yelling and so forth. All of a sudden, boom, it goes right back down to the floor, okay? And now guys are scurrying. Where's that line? Where's that nozzle? You see, this is how we get into trouble when guys are breaking off the line and so forth without understanding, hey, have we knocked this fire down yet or not? And that's a very dangerous situation. So once again, the principles and practices. You stay in that line because it's your lifeline at this point. Make sure you got that fire under control. Young people on the nozzle, you take a look at what's happening in the fire academies today. You got the burn barrel, you got the pallets and the straw. They go in there, they knock it down, they think they've killed the red devil off, and so forth. And they don't use any water. They don't understand fire attack. And if the boss in the fire company, when they graduate from the academy and get out to the streets, isn't there telling them, no, flow it, kill it, keep it running, keep it working. If they're not being taught that or told that, they're going to miss their cue. So,
Right.
So that's another thing about fire attack. So, yeah.
All right.
So,
Good stuff, Jeff.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.